Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, Dark Star Adventures and thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Yes, your ears did not deceive you. I said sponsored by Dark Star Adventures and thegaminggang.com. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. This is live stream number 1075. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I'll usually pontificate about some topic related to our hobby, which is what I'll be doing tonight. What a shocker. But of course, we're just hanging out, having fun. We are not involved in anything as mentally draining as, say, rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live show, there's also chat available. How many times am I going to say also there? Because I said it also again, also. There is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber for at least 60 minutes in order to take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, if you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Mark C.M. Clover. Keith Hulu's with us, as is Tony Urquides, well known as Cave, Testy Trekkie, Semper Buffo, the aforementioned Dark Star Adventures, Jody Connor, James Eck, James Venebush, and W. Forge. So we got a nice chat rocking and rolling already. I do know that our friend and chat moderator, the Madman, is not with us this week. I believe he's on vacation. But I will take a guess, maybe, just maybe, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is out there in the shadows with her glittery banhammer to keep people in line. Mm-hmm. So Wingus Roy is with us. Says no karate this week. They can catch it live. Well, welcome. Make yourself at home. Maddie C is also with us tonight. I noticed they had just popped in as well. So before we jump on into the news, it has been eventful. Yep, I'm not going to get into the news over the past, I don't know, since I did the last live show on Thursday. It feels like we're living in a completely different world. But to top that off, I broke the big toe on my right foot yesterday morning. Yeah. So interestingly enough, I have 3 Kickstarter news pieces today, and all 3 of these Kickstarters I have some sort of association with. And 2 of those Kickstarters were launching at the same exact moment yesterday. So I knew if I had scheduled these things to post, that is a recipe for disaster because they were going to be at the same exact moment. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I've got everything all set up. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit publish. I'll be all good. So I hop in the shower. I'm taking a shower, and I knew I was kind of pressed for time. And I'm just hurrying out of the shower. And the shower also has a tub. And of course, there's this metal band that the shower, right there, right? This slides open, slides closed. So I slam my foot just spot onto it. And I mean, just like, I didn't like catch it at an angle or anything like that. So, I mean, I just not only just bashed it in there, I also bashed the nail. I was like, oh my God. And I had an idea that there was something wrong because after about 5 minutes, it didn't go away, right? Like you stub your toe and it's like, oh man, ow. And then it's, eventually it goes away. No. So I thought, okay, maybe I've just sprained it or something. So got up this morning and I was like, well, I think I better go to urgent care because it was it just was still throbbing. So anyway, I was not going to do a show on the 4th of July because of the holiday anyway. So I am not going to be doing a show tomorrow. So just tonight. And if you follow the Gaming Gang, if you've been following for a while, I'm not one of these people who takes like painkillers and things like that. In fact, I still have a nearly full bottle of painkillers that I was given when I had my triple bypass. So if I wasn't taking painkillers for them cracking open my chest, I'm certainly not going to be sitting there taking painkillers for a busted toe, but still. 3 weeks from tomorrow is Comic-Con. I was told that it should be okay. But man, that's exhausting just walking normally. So, whoa. It's like, wow. Mark CMG Clover says, Romper, Bopper, Stomper, Boo, tell me, do. Magic Mirror, please tell me today. Did all our friends have fun at play? I remember Romper Room. I'm old enough to recall that. Yes. W. Forge says, that's how they came up with the idea for time travel. Yeah, go back. So I lift my foot 2 inches higher. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Jose Fernandez and Melwinius from York are hanging with us tonight. Very cool. Very cool. So tonight, I am actually going to share some memories of tabletop gaming in Chicago during the 1980s. Because I couldn't think of like any, inspiring sort of topic for tonight. So I thought I would kind of talk about what it was like to be a teenager and being introduced to the hobby and how things were quite different back then as opposed to now. So Galaxy Fox Night Sky is joining us the first time live in chat. Welcome aboard. Keldon is also with us again tonight. So James X says, combat wheelchair time. No, I would, if I can't walk at Comic-Con, I'm not going. I'm not going to. It would be bad enough going to Gen Con, having to use a wheelchair. Comic-Con, I couldn't even imagine it. Coco B has popped on in, says TGG, the Broken Toe Sessions. Yeah. All right, let's jump on into the news because I've got quite a bit tonight. First off, designer Greg Porter and Blacksburg Tactical Research Center have launched a Kickstarter to fund a new historical worker placement game. I've got the scoop on Iceland, Settlement to Independence. Welcome to Iceland, Settlement to Independence, an innovative worker placement board game that puts you in the role of the original settlers of Iceland, shaping the course of the nation for the next 1,000 years. Iceland is a semi-cooperative game for 3 to 6 players that deals with the history of Iceland from its settlement in the 9th century to gaining independence in 1944. Players are individually competing for control of limited resources to gain influence and prestige, but simultaneously cooperating to help rebuild the country after it is ravaged by civil war, religious schism, changing climate, and the ever-present threat of volcanic eruptions. Do want to mention, there is a short Kickstarter video. I have had to mute the music because, once again, YouTube flags it as a violation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to continue sharing some of this sell sheet info as you take a peek at the video itself. Yes, little voiceover. Only one player. Wait a second. Wrong video. What the hell? Let's see. Hold on. All right. You know, I had everything set up. I swear, I had everything set up right. Damn you, Toe. Hang on a second. Let's see. Let me go on in here. Oh, I know why it did this. I know why this happened. Because I had to duplicate a voiceover video, and when it duplicated it, it actually ended up going and just copying the one I already had set up, which is for our next video that we're going to dive on into after Iceland. See what happens? If you don't watch live, you miss out on all of the screw-ups because you know I edited all out. No. Only one player can win Iceland, by the way. But if the players as a group have not overcome these hardships and advanced the economy and culture of Iceland enough to reach the independence threshold, then everyone loses. Every game plays in a set number of rounds from the settlement era to World War II. Rounds consist of events, choosing the lost speaker, and player actions. Each round has a special event, and aside from the first and last round, these are random but grouped within historical eras. The selection of events is based on historical events in Iceland, but each era has enough possible events to choose from that no two games will play exactly the same, even though every game is based on actual history. In addition, each historical period has the potential for a major volcanic eruption that will disrupt some or all of the 7 regions on the map. Once again, this is for 3 to 6 players, ages 12 and up, plays around 60 to 90 minutes. You can reserve a copy for the early bird price, which I believe is still in effect. You can get it for a $45 pledge, or after that, you can reserve a copy for a $60 pledge. The turnaround on this is actually pretty damn quick. It is going to be coming out this fall. And as I had mentioned, all of the Kickstarters I'm talking about tonight, I have some sort of association with. I have a Kickstarter preview video of Iceland. We played it. We enjoyed it a lot. It is quite different in its approach because You're actually cooperating enough to make sure that you have enough points at the end of the game in order for Iceland to gain its independence. But you are also playing a little bit of screw your neighbor, because there's only one winner at the end, and that's who has influenced these events the most. Of course, whoever's got the most victory points. But I find that very interesting. And I will mention, this is certainly not a game for everyone, especially those out there. And I know you got them out there who just do not like any take that in their board games. And you must be able to negotiate with your other players, because you have to wheel and deal to get things done. But we had a really good time. We played 4 players and really enjoyed it. And it played in around 75 minutes, 90 minutes. It didn't run that long. So I highly recommend checking out Iceland. I know it just launched yesterday. My toe will remind me of that. So give it a peek. Most definitely give it a peek. And if you're intrigued, give my Kickstarter preview a look as well. Let's see. Somebody had mentioned that they had already checked out. Oh, Tessie Trekkie had checked out the video and they are intrigued. Yeah. And Greg Porter has designed quite a few games for Mark H. Walker. So Armageddon War is one, and then he also designed the expansions for that. I also did a review. He did Zombie War, which was one of those kind of like zip bag games from Tiny Battle Publishing. So I know he did that. So he is an established game designer. This is not some newcomer to the hobby. All right, so let's move on to some role-playing game news and tonight's sponsor, because there is a new adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics and 5e Dungeons & Dragons, which is launched on Kickstarter. It just launched today, and it actually funded today. And it is from Dark Star Adventures, and I've got the deets on Cult of the Cave Crickets. In the hollow depths beneath the earth, where light is forgotten and sanity wavers, lies a terror beyond mortal comprehension. Cult of the Cave Crickets invites you to descend into a labyrinth of darkness where mutated insects skitter and fungal abominations writhe. Unravel the mystery of a fallen star and a missing research expedition over 2 to 3 sessions of intense gameplay. This is not a mere adventure. It is a journey into madness, a confrontation with the unknowable, and a test of your very sanity. This also has a video that I am going to have to do some voiceover with. You already got a sneak peek at it. But here, let's take a peek with it actually correctly sized. All right. What the hell? Oh, I get it. Okay, now I know what I've done. So these are coming up as duplicate videos. So once I change that other video to the Iceland, it changed this video to Iceland too. All right, so here we go. Yeah, okay, so it opened up. We had that meteor, rocketing towards the earth. Dare you enter the subterranean abyss and confront the cult of the cave crickets? Here's a sneak peek at what's packed into this adventure. There are 17 locations across 3 distinct areas, 10 brand new enemies, 5 unique magical items, a host of deadly traps and environmental hazards, a variety of ways to kick off the adventure, and multiple endings, from minimally to highly disruptive to the surrounding world. Yes. This Kickstarter project, as I already mentioned, fully funded within its first 3 hours. And this project runs through July 31st. You can reserve a copy of the 30-ish page softcover with PDF for a pledge of $15, or grab just the PDF for a $7 pledge. Now, expected delivery on the PDF is actually within the first couple of weeks of August, and the physical books are slated to be delivered in September. There you go. There you go. W. Forge says Jeff is trolling us. No, I am not trolling you. So I have one scene that's considered a voiceover video. So what I have in that is that there is no audio from the video. The audio is from my microphone. Whereas normally when I share videos with you, which you're going to see one in just a few moments, you would get the audio from the video and my mic is muted. So when I duplicated it, it didn't just duplicate, oh, here's how the scene is set up. It actually duplicated it with the same video. So when I changed that video to Iceland, it changed the other scene to Iceland as well. James Venabush is asking, this is DCC, correct? Well, I'll tell you what, we actually have Jeff, no relation to me, from Darkstar Adventures in chat with us. So yes, this is available in DCC and 5e flavors. I think it's just one book with both stat blocks. And of course, Jeff will be able to answer your questions there. I guess I'll say yes. So Jeff number 2. So if you have any questions about it, by all means. So yes, one of the things that really stands out about Cult of the Cave Crickets, outside of it sounding like a pretty good adventure, which we will eventually see, because Darkstar Adventures has mentioned they're going to send a copy along once it's done. But the artwork is really impressive. And it just has kind of that, I would say late first edition AD&D feel to it, where the artwork was starting to, the line art was starting to get pretty good. Not like early, early AD&D stuff, but pretty cool. So I got to also say, $7 PDF, $15 softcover with PDF. That's a pretty nice deal. Pretty good deal, I would say. And Lord Cost 2000 and Lenny Blade, as well as Russell Higgins, are in chat with us. Welcome, everybody. Master Jedi Dude is also popping on in. Moving right along. Hey, let's talk about a news piece that doesn't have a video that I can fuck up. Because there is a new supplement which has arrived for the Traveler role-playing game. And I've got the skinny on Bounty Hunters from Mongoose Publishing. A new style of campaign for Traveler. When law enforcement cannot resolve a crisis and others need plausible deniability, who do they call? Well, outside of Ghostbusters. Expendable, yet whispered about in hushed voices, bounty hunters are not paragons of virtue or honor, taking contracts issued by guilds, corporations, law enforcement, criminal syndicates, and others. There are few things more important than the reward. Rivaling far trader captains in the light years spent traveling, bounty hunters chase down their marks across charted space and bring them in, dead or alive. Bounty Hunter covers rules for reputation, the system by which a bounty hunter's pay, contracts, and support are measured. Learn how to hunt down marks, apprehend them, and get rewarded for your work. Bounty Hunter also features dedicated equipment, vehicles, ships, bounty hunting agencies, contracts, safe houses, hideouts, and adversaries for use in your Traveler campaigns. The 160-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99, or you can grab the PDF right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. Always cool to see new Traveler stuff popping on out. But as W Forge points out, they can't afford to keep up with Traveler's output. And I understand that quite well. I know where you're coming from, W Forge. And I know it's kind of silly. Why bring up the price from Mongoose Publishing anymore? Because you know what? Now their higher price isn't necessarily an outlier. So, and I know I have had people point out that, hey, they're more than happy to pay a little extra for Mongoose Publishing releases because they at least pay their employees and their freelancers. And I was like, okay, all right. And yes, I agree with Russell Higgins that, yes, the Traveler PDFs are pricey. But they're usually pretty good. Now, yes, there are some releases over the years that may not have packed as much value in them. But for the most part, yeah, I think so. Dark Star Adventures says they whipped out the old AD&D monster manuals for some art research. Nice. It's pretty cool. James X says, yes, paying proofreaders would be nice at that price. Yeah, I got you. I got you on that one. I'll tell you what I like. And we see this with Cubicle 7 Games, as well as Free League Publishing. They will release the PDFs normally of something that is going to come out about 6 months early. And they actually use those as betas. So people will point out, hey, you forgot to put XYZ stat block in here. Or how come there's all these typos? Or this doesn't make any sense. Well, that's what what the point, I guess I should say, of releasing those PDFs so early happens to be. And I think people have started to realize that because they would complain. A couple of years ago, people would, especially Cubicle 7, people would complain about Cubicle 7 and be like, didn't you guys even proofread this thing? And they would point out, hey, we're releasing this early so we can catch stuff. You can help us. So pretty nice. So let's talk about the other Kickstarter that I'm involved with, because now a project for my friends over at Acheron Games is up on Kickstarter. It funded right away. This one launched yesterday, and I'm talking about Hell of a Town. Hell of a Town is an outraging tabletop role-playing game in which you play as a 1930s style cartoon to live crazy adventures using giant, super pimped weapons made by Scam Inc. while you escape from the gangsters of the Ducko family, dream or fear the return of the legendary Jimmy Rat, and above all, make everything explode. The game system is rules light and narrative driven, and it's designed to be learned in 5 minutes. Hell of a Town is suitable for both hardcore players looking for a light and fun game, or novices, or even people without any previous gaming experience. Think of an RPG that mixes Cuphead, the Looney Tunes and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network productions with Goodfellas-style gangster movies and smart Who Framed Roger Rabbit-style comedies. And you've got only 10% of the madness of Hell of a Town. There is a Kickstarter video. It's pretty short. There is going to be sound, though, so I don't have to do a voiceover. So let's give it a peek. The Hell of a Town core rulebook is going to clock in at around 80 pages. It's going to be a hardcover, and you'll be able to reserve a copy of the physical book with PDF for a $31 pledge. You'll be able to grab the physical art book with PDF for a $20 pledge, or you can also score both together, plus an animator screen and a Hell of a Town deck of cards for a $63 pledge. This project is actually pretty fast. It only runs through, I want to say it's July 15th. It's a 2-week project for the most part. Now, expected delivery of digital and physical releases is going to be April of next year. Now, I did share a preview video where I kind of discuss the core mechanics of the game. And it's just kind of an overview of Hell of a Town. Love the artwork. The artwork is all from the same artist. The artist's name is, off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, it is Sean Dickerson, who is the artist for the Cuphead comic book. So as you can see, there's a very 1930s odd sort of almost like sort of Max Fleischer Studios look to some of the characters. Little Betty Boop-ish kind of style there as well. Even some Ed Big Daddy Roth, which is kind of odd, right? So that's like 60s and 70s. But this funded within just a few minutes. I think it funded within like 15 minutes. So Flaming Heron's with us, as is Chris Lundgren. And Flaming Heron says, so Toon? No, not Toon. In fact, funny enough, I remember way back in the day picking up Toon. I mean, we're talking when it came out. So we're talking, I was in high school. And I personally didn't care for the system. This system is super easy. So real quick, just to let you know how action resolution is done. So your game master is called the animator. They narrate stuff. They do not have a deck. So they're not actually like rolling dice, which is in this, drawing cards. So whenever you're trying to do something, doesn't matter if you're trying to attempt an action or if you're attacking, defending, what have you, you're going to draw 2 cards from your deck, and you also will have a trait which is associated with what you're doing, and there are 4 traits, your attributes for the most part. So you'll add that to the total, and if the suit or color, if you're getting the Hell of a Town deck, matches that trait, you'll also get a bonus of 1. And the animator chooses, a difficulty from 10, pretty basic, to 25, which is sanity, right? Oh, what are you, crazy to try that? And that's it. I just taught you how to play in less than 5 minutes. So there you have it. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. All right, let's see. Oh, Stephen from Roll for Combat rolled on in. There we go. So Stephen says their favorite role-playing game of all time is Toon. Well, if that's the case, you may want to take a peek at this, Stephen. So W. Forge says it's the RPG version of Cuphead, the video game. Sort of, kind of, a little bit. Although they didn't go for the IP, is what I got to get out of it. So, like I said, the artwork especially is very impressive. So I liked it. I got to be honest, I only had the quick start to do my video from, and it was just the PDF. So I basically shared images like this. So maybe not the most exciting Kickstarter preview around, but better than nothing. All right, my final news piece, now available from author Jonathan Green, is You Are the Hero, an interactive history of fighting fantasy game books, 40th anniversary edition. Here's what I know. fighting fantasy game books, the publishing phenomenon of the 1980s, have sold over 20 million books worldwide in over 30 languages. But when Steve Jackson, not American Steve Jackson, English Steve Jackson, and even Ian Livingstone sat down to write the original fighting fantasy game book, The Warlock of Firetop Mountain, they could not have predicted that this one simple adventure would go on to spawn over 100 titles, let alone begin to guess at the impact it would have on a generation of children growing up in the 1980s. Part history, part celebration, You Are the Hero chronicles 4 decades of the fighting fantasy phenomenon. Written by Jonathan Green, who also happens to be the author of 8 fighting fantasy game books, this mighty tome will appeal to anyone who ever whittled away a washed-out summer holiday with only 2 dice, a pencil, and an eraser for company. The book has been broken into numbered sections, just like a fighting fantasy game book. You can either read the book from cover to cover, or you can turn to different numbered sections when presented with a choice of topics that you might like to follow up on, instead of progressing in a linear manner. Now, right now, you can pre-order You Are the Hero, an interactive history of fighting fantasy game books 40th anniversary edition. Say that 5 times fast. For approximately $32.50 from Amazon UK. The regular MSRP is approximately $53. Now, there is a reason why I mention Amazon UK. Because if you order it from Amazon US, it's $75. Now, I don't believe it's got free shipping either. Whereas it's far less through the UK. So, just letting you know. So, yeah, of course, if you're a fan of the fighting fantasy game books, then by all means, you're going to want to pick this up. And I have to point out, I have a copy myself. So stay tuned because I have been reading this. It is super impressive. It really is. I am actually going to share a review of this, which is going to be a bit unusual because I normally don't share book reviews. I share, game book reviews. But this is really, really well done. This will actually not be available until August 1st, according to Amazon. W4 asked, but what's the shipping from the US or from UK to US? It's still less. So I took a look from the UK to the US because I went in, I was in my account, and it came out to around $50. So even coming from the UK, it was still like $25 less. Now, the question becomes, because I don't know, can you order items from like Amazon UK to be shipped here to the US, or do you have to go through Amazon if you're in the US? I honestly do not know. I don't know. So Chris Lundgren's pointing out that the new Conan game from Monolith Games is up on Kickstarter. So, I didn't think it started. I thought the Kickstarter doesn't start until this fall, if I remember correctly, because I had gotten an email about it. So one thing I should point out, because I think some folks don't realize this. When a Kickstarter is announced, I don't share news pieces. Because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, there is so little actual information that's been released about it. So myself personally, I wait till Kickstarters launch, and then I share a news piece. Sometimes I wait a few days to see, oh, how did it do? Because that way, when I share an article on thegaminggang.com, it's not just, oh, XYZ game launches on Kickstarter. It's XYZ game crushes funding goal in 30 minutes on Kickstarter. Something that's got a little more, oomph to it. But when Kickstarters get announced, and I hear about them all the time, if it's not really a news piece that's got sell sheet information, pledge levels, things like that, nope. So, Melwinius from York says the Battletech Mercenaries Kickstarter was a mess regarding shipping charges. Though it was solved, some people in the U.S. had several $100s being charged. W. Forge says, I thought about ordering from Modiphius for a Star Trek book and dice, and the shipping was around $35. Didn't you go to their U.S. store? Go to modiphius.us. That's the U.S. store. That's their U.S. warehouse. You won't have to pay anything from that. Sarah D. is with us. I noticed she had popped up earlier and said her internet went out about a half dozen times since the show started. Wow, that sucks. So Sarah D. is popping on out. Have a wonderful week that's ahead, and enjoy the 4th of July. So hopefully we will see you once again next week. So Flaming Heron is our only chat moderator. Yeah. Scared yet, everybody? Better behave. He has the power to kick you right on out. And Mark CMG Clover says, and sometimes it might not launch in time due to a broken toe. No, actually, the funny thing is those Kickstarter news pieces, they got out. They ended up getting out. They were delayed by a few moments, but no, they got out there. The preview videos, they got out there. So Flaming Heron said they bought a few books from the UK and the shipping was almost on par with the book cost. And Flaming Heron's in Australia. So, W. Forge says the Modiphius US site didn't have the dice. Oh, that stinks. I don't know what to tell you. All right. Anyway, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, during the news, I did mention Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Now you're going to have to kind of look to the side for our Drive-Thru RPG ad because we have Kickstarter ads in our top slots, including Cult, I should say, of the Cave Crickets from Dark Star Adventures. But if you use our link and you make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by my gosh, there's like a couple of little bugs zipping around. And I think one just flew in my mouth. I mean, they're like almost tiny gnat size. So you might see me talking and all of a sudden I'm like, what? Like glancing away. Because it's like zip, zip, zip. Hey, it's protein. What can I tell you? See, there it goes right there. There's one. You're not seeing it because it's so small. So, maybe it was a cave cricket jumping on in. Tasty. but it wasn't chocolate covered. I don't know. Anyway, you can always stop on over at paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Refreshing. And there are folks out there such as Agile Monk and the Madman and Joshua Edwards who stop by and make not small donations. So big tip of the cap to everybody out there who helps keep the Gaming Gang channel and thegaminggang.com around. It is much appreciated. So tonight, I am going to share some memories of tabletop gaming in the 1980s in Chicago. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Refreshment. For your enjoyment, there's hot, fresh popcorn, tempting, delicious hot dogs, and so many kinds of ice cream. And, of course, sparkling, delicious, ice-cold Coca-Cola for everybody at the refreshment counter now. Remember, your favorite snack will taste especially good with world-famous ice-cold Coca-Cola.
Somebody saw the shot, and she's got a cold drink for you. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks. Come in on a wave and end up at a party. It's going to be a good evening. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks.
So the next morning, Tony ran...
You read all of Tony Gets a Pony and you're ready for a drink. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. So good it hurts. Fresh, wet, and moonlit. A girl and the Canada Dry. And across a crowded boat you hear ice cracking and wisecracking, and you know it's going to last till dawn. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks.
Coffee break. Want a cup of Wilkins? Oh, thank you. Now all our workers drink Wilkins.
Crackos, wake up for Crackos.
Who are you?
I'm Cracko, with my new Waker-Upper cereal, Post-Corn Crackos. Have you heard what happens when you crack into Crackos?
Mm-mm.
Don't talk when you're cracking.
Fire! Who's making that racket? It crackles when you crunch.
Corn Crackos, new from Post. Crackling little twists of golden corn cereal, sugary sweet and crisp enough to drive you wild. Crackos, wake up for Crackos. Have you heard what happens when you crack into Crackos?
Are you kidding?
I'm Cracko. Say how'd you do?
What's all that noise?
You, Marshall!
The doing gangs in town.
Please, I'll tell you.
I heard it. It crackles when you crunch.
You hear it too, mate. Get new Post-Corn Crackos.
Wonkins, no! The Badger and 2,4,5-trioxin are hanging with the gang tonight. Welcome to you both. So 2,4,5-trioxin asked, or actually said, they were surprised that the spiders here in the kingdom of the spiders have not kept the little bugs in check. Reality is, I sprayed mint around here. I have not seen spiders. Well, I've seen little ones very rarely. But since I did that, we really don't see too many spiders floating around here. So I just wanted to keep them away. I'm not looking to kill them. I just, let me do my thing, okay? Because it was kind of weird me shooting a video and then, doing a top-down, yeah, doing a page through or something else. And this spider comes running across the table. It's like, well, no. All right. So tonight I am going to share some memories of tabletop gaming in Chicago during the 1980s. And a lot of people talk about, gaming in the 80s and the gatekeeping and all that other stuff, racism, sexism, and stuff. I never encountered it. I do not claim that did not happen. I never claim none of that stuff happened. It didn't happen with people that we gamed with. Didn't happen in my high school and stuff like that. Didn't happen at the game days that we went to and little like Saturday afternoon game days at the local church or what have you. But I think what people don't really talk about is just how different it was than nowadays. And the first thing that was really different was finding new stuff. Scott Weigel, my good friend from high school, is joining us. He is going to be a perfect source of information here with us tonight because he's one of the gamers that I played with in high school. So Scott will remember many of the places that I talk about and a lot of the games that I'll mention too. But like I said, a lot of discussion of like negatives surrounding the early days following the release of like AD&D. But what you don't hear a lot of people talk about was just the holy shit moments that you would have and be like, oh my gosh, there's a new game. We got to get it. We got to pick that up. Top secret. I like spy movies. I like James Bond. I got to go get it. In fact, I think it was Scott who had, well, I think we all had Top Secret, but I think Scott ran some Top Secret, if I remember correctly. So one of the first things that I'll mention was it was not easy to track down games. And remember, I'm talking about Chicago. Well, I'm not talking about that I lived in some small town in, South Dakota or something like that. No, we're talking in Chicago. There weren't a lot of places that you could pick stuff up early on, right? This was before we got to wasn't it Walden Books who carried D&D books at a certain point? Yeah, Scott Weigel points out that and 007. I say it all the time. I think that James Bond role-playing game from Victory Games is a classic. It was really well done. And yes, it was mechanically crunchy, but it was really well done. And I know somebody in chat who hangs out in chat has mentioned in the past that there is kind of an open source version of that that's available now. But I swear, if somebody ever, decided, hey, we're going to actually grab the James Bond IP, use that system because it was so well done. So the Badger says, Walden Books, KB Toys, and Circus World were all good sources. So I don't remember, for one, I don't recall Circus World. I don't think that was a toy store chain that we had. KB Toys we did. And KB Toys, I don't really remember carrying like D&D books. What we would tend to run across at KB Toys were marked down Avalon Hill games where you would go in and they would have, they could have anything. They weren't just like the non-war games from Avalon Hill. They had war games too from Avalon Hill. And they were, if I remember correctly, they were $5. They were marked down to $5. And we picked up some stuff for $5 over at KB Toys. So the question was, what part of Chicago did I live in? I was on the northwest side of Chicago. So I was in an area that was over by Pulaski and I guess we'll say Devon, if you're familiar with the city. Scott points out they have so many packed boxes of one-off games because we would get our hands on all these new games as they came out. Oh, yeah. We used to get tons of stuff. So I remember early on, there was a place called Devon Hobbies that was over on Western Avenue and Devon Avenue. That was northwest side of the city. And that's where I saw the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief for D&D and bought it. Remember, I always point out that was the first D&D purchase I made. And I had played D&D once because my brother's friend, because my brother is 2.5 years older than I am, I rolled up a character. I've pointed this story out before. And I got an 18, I think it was 97 strength. And he was like, oh my gosh. So it was a hobby shop that mainly dealt with slot car racing and models. But they had a small section that had Avalon Hill games. And then they had the stand of D&D books and modules. And at that point in time, I think it was just the player's handbook. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was just the monster manual that was out. Because I swear I picked up G1, I want to say it was 79, because I was not in high school yet. So that was one place. Another place was this like famous hobby shop throughout the country. People, if they had a layover at O'Hare Airport, would actually take a cab to this hobby shop because this hobby shop took up most of a city block. And it was called Stanton Hobbies. And they had everything from radio-controlled airplanes to huge selection of models. They carried some Avalon Hill games. I don't recall them carrying D&D stuff. So that was another place. And then Scott will remember this place. It was called Sutler's Wagon. And that was over on Central Avenue near Belmont. And it was just walking by, you wouldn't even notice it. It was just in a little storefront. And I want to say I was in high school when I encountered that place. And then it closed before our senior year. And we never knew why it closed. We had no idea why it had closed. It just, one day it wasn't open anymore. Because I think if I remember correctly, the owner, he was probably my age. He wasn't like an old guy. I think if I remember correctly, they were closed on Mondays. I think they were closed Sundays and Mondays. And then it was just closed every day. It was never open again. But we used to go there all the time. And then, yes, Gamers Paradise. Now, Gamers Paradise came like later. Gamers Paradise wasn't carrying games like tabletop games early on. In fact, like I said, I don't think they were even around like 1980, 81. It was probably mid 80s when they came out. And yes, they were a pretty decent sized chain. In fact, Mark is pointing out that it had 13 stores at one point. Says they were open from the late 70s. They may have been open from the late 70s, but they didn't carry tabletop games. They may have carried chess stuff, but the store we went to was at Harlem and Irving Plaza. So we went there. So Scott says, yes, they remember Devon Hobbies because if you took the bus home from high school, so Devon and Western makes sense. Well, funny enough, my grandparents didn't live very far from Devon Hobbies. That's why I knew it existed. And I had been in there a few times, but not looking for games. I was just, because, you got to remember back in the day, back when Scott and I were kids and a lot of you watching were kids, being 12 years old and taking a public bus, taking public transportation wasn't a big deal. Nobody flipped out and they weren't looking to call child services on your parents. It was pretty much the norm. But, so we had Gamers Plus. That was out in the burbs. I'm not sure when Gamers Plus came around. Because I was probably in my 20s the first time I visited Gamers Plus in Mount Prospect. So, but yeah, Scott says the Home Depot of hobby world. Stand hobbies, yes. And then over the years, they shrank. So they actually sold, I think, half of their space to someplace else. And then it was a few years ago that they closed their doors forever. Ooh. Chris Langren asks, was Kmart big in Chicago for D&D stuff? Not that I remember. I don't recall that. In fact, I don't recall Kmart being big for any sort of games. I know someone in chat previously had mentioned the Sears catalog with D&D in the Sears catalog. I remember that. I remember seeing that in there. Mark says the Deerbrook Mall location, they managed Kinney's shoes in 1979. Holy cow. I was going to say, I wasn't even in high school yet at that point. Yeah, see, Scott says, no, they don't recall Kmart in the Chicago area carrying D&D stuff. But you got to realize, I mean, if you grew up in an area that was like more rural or just a smaller community, maybe not necessarily a metropolis, then maybe Kmart would have been a source for D&D stuff. But something else to mention is, and I've talked about this many times over the years on the show, we moved on from D&D fairly early. So it was 81, 82, probably, that by then we had moved on because Scott and I and my best friend Elliot and other friends of mine that I still keep in touch with who have not popped into chat because I don't think they really game much anymore or have an interest in the hobby. But I was going to say that we all were friends in high school and we all went to the same high school. So we were all part of a game club, the Gamers Guild. So that's how we all knew each other. And I would say by 82-ish, we had moved on. I recall Scott running Top Secrets and Behind Enemy Lines our other friend, Tim Phelan, who still lives in the Chicago area. In fact, I think he still lives in Chicago. He ran games. Elliot ran stuff every once in a while. He started running games, role-playing games, obviously, a little bit later. I think we were like out of high school. And then, of course, I ran all different stuff, but mostly I got into running Call of Cthulhu. And then we played miniatures. We played Knights and Magic, which I sell on the GamingGang.com website because I now have the rights to it. So we played a bit of that. We played Fletcher Pratt's, which we absolutely loved. Scott still has some of the hand-typed and handwritten ship sheets. And then, back then you had to sit there with a calculator figuring this stuff out. And Fletcher Pratt's is a naval war game where your ships have a point value, and it could be like 250,000 points, right? It could be 500,000 points. Like a ship like the Yamato would probably be somewhere, if memory serves me correctly, it's probably somewhere around 300,000 points. And what you would do is, let's say, okay, so it's got 10 guns. Well, 10% of that total, you take that damage, you lose one of your primary guns. And so that's how the breakdown would work. But you had to sit there with the calculator. You're like, okay, so we'll say it's like a cruiser that's got like 30,000 points. You'd be sitting there and you'd be like, okay, so it's got 30 knots. It's got 30,000 points. Well, that one's easy. Every 1,000 points, it loses a knot of speed, and so on and so forth. But that was very time consuming. Really was. But it was worth it because we had a really good time. Okay, so Scott's talking about Dawn Patrol using actual 1/72nd scale models. I have mentioned this before. I don't know if it's Dawn Patrol or Nights in the Sky, but I think Scott is right. I think it was Dawn Patrol. And I don't know how we found this guy. It may have been somebody Scott knew. It was either Scott knew them or our friend Tim somehow knew this guy. And I'll never forget, guy's name was Mark Moffat. I don't know why I still remember that name all these years later. And I remember going over there a couple of times and we played. Like I said, I think Scott's right. I think it is Dawn Patrol. Because Dawn Patrol and Nights in the Sky are very, very similar rule sets. But Dawn Patrol was essentially a board game with hexes. Well, they used 1/72nd scale model planes. They were all painted and they were on radio aerials, car radio aerials. So you could adjust up and down to kind of represent altitude somewhatly. But that was a blast. That was really, really cool. Yes, Chris Lundgren mentions Starfleet Battles is still alive, still around. We played that when it first came out. That was another game that Scott remembers probably very well. So Scott says it was that they met Mark Moffat at a Napoleon miniatures event. Because I was going to say I thought we were at his house another time and played some Napoleonics miniatures. Now I remember Elliot and I played in a Napoleonics miniatures game, and I want to say that it used the rule set that was sold by Emperor's Press, which was an offshoot of the Emperor's headquarters store, another place that was in Chicago, but they opened when I was out of high school. I was an adult when they opened that up. And it was mainly war games and miniatures and stuff like that. But I remember playing it and not a goddamn thing happened. We were there for hours and nothing happened. It was like, but I don't think that was there. I think that was something else somewhere down the line. Kevin King is popping on into chat. Welcome aboard. Scott Weagle points out, yeah, we played Knights and Magic the most. Yeah, with all the the Grenadier miniatures and stuff and really bad paint jobs. Stuff you had, some of the miniatures had testers paint. I used to take toothpicks and whittle down the toothpick so it had just this tiny little tip to it. And that's how I would paint eyes. Oh, how things have changed. Justice McPherson is with us in chat. Says, I miss my group from the 80s and my group from the 90s. Diverse, and sometimes we played other things. Some of the games I would not be likely to get people to play today. Mark CMG Clover says, Emperor's Press had good Age of Sail rules. You know, when we talk about gatekeeping and stuff, sadly, the Emperor's headquarters was one of those kind of places where if you were not part of their clique. Now, of course, I was a regular because I didn't live that far away, and I'd pop over there usually almost every Saturday to see what was new. And they did carry some RPG stuff and things along those lines, but they were mainly a war games and miniature wargaming store. They didn't carry Games Workshop stuff, anything like that. That was one of their big points of pride, that they did not carry Games Workshop. But they also had this attitude where oh yes, we're so high and mighty. So that was one thing that I did not care for, especially since I was there on a weekly basis and spent money. It wasn't like I walked in the door and was like, oh, I'm just looking. I'm going to read this book. Stuff like that. So Justice McPherson points out Phase Rip, Top Secret SI, Mecton. I hadn't played any of those. Played Top Secret, but I did not play Top Secret SI. And I don't recall ever playing Phase Rip. I don't recall playing Marvel superheroes. I know I had it. I know I bought it. I think I didn't care for the system itself. Remember, you're looking at somebody who didn't play basic expert D&D because we played advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Right? It's okay. Now it's kind of I run stuff that's in that kind of ballpark rules-wise. So, yes, we did finish up the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure on Friday. So we did wrap up Sailors on the Starless Sea. So that went pretty well. I was really surprised. There were more villagers survived that than I thought were going to. So Mark Clover says they played Emperor's Press Age of Sail rules over at Games Plus in Mount Prospect. I never gamed it, Games Plus. In fact, the reality is I didn't game at stores much at all. In fact, I could probably count on 3 fingers how many times I've actually played at a game store. So anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about as far as gaming in the 80s was kind of the wonder of it. Because you have to remember, we didn't have 300 cable channels. Most people had the 3 major networks PBS, some UHF channels. They just had regular over-the-air television. Yeah, sure. Some people had, cable TV and stuff like that, but we didn't have shows like Game of Thrones, as an example, right? We didn't have Harry Potter movies. We didn't have Lord of the Rings outside of them being books, which I think the reality is probably helped us a lot more than like young high schoolers these days, as far as playing tabletop role-playing games. And we talked about this before as far as imagination. And the best way to supercharge your imagination is to read. If you don't read, if all you do is watch a screen all the time, then your imagination only can process based on what you've seen, not what your brain concocts, right? So Scott points out we had Doctor Who. That was kind of, as kids, like when the hobby was just starting to emerge, the hobby of role-playing games, that was becoming a little more mainstream, say 79-ish. By then we had like Battlestar Galactica, which started out really good and went right off a cliff. So we had that. We had, Star Trek had been off the air forever. So we didn't have all the goodies we've got today. Today, it's like you have that FOMO about streaming shows. It's like, oh no, there's too much to stream. I mean, if we had stuff like The Acolyte, which I have yet to actually check out, our heads would explode. Because it'd be like, oh my gosh, this is on TV. We didn't have that. So we had mostly really crappy ripoffs of Star Wars that the networks were trying to make a buck on. And we had in the 80s, we started to get some. Now, personally, I think Conan the Barbarian is pretty good. I mean, is it a classic film? Conan the Destroyer is just absolute trash. It's like a comedy featuring Conan the Barbarian. It's like, okay, it's like night and day. For one, it went from an R rating to a PG rating. But we also had other schlocky sort of fantasy movies, schlocky science fiction movies. For the most part, we had some good stuff. But for the most part, it was like the Beastmaster and the Beastmaster 2 and things like that. The Badger says, Hawk the Slayer. Right, those kind of things. So, W. Forge says they remember Ziploc tile-based games like Vampire and Raid on Iran. I bought Raid on Iran from an ad in, I think it was Dragon Magazine. Because I remember ordering it from Steve Jackson Games and it was sent to me. And then, yes, Vampire. Actually, the art on the counters for Vampire is really cool. I forget, Dennis Valère or something like that is his, was it the artist's name, if I remember correctly, or Valero or something like that. But he did really cool art. He did Car Wars art as well. And then he also did the standees that Steve Jackson Games used to sell that were on card stock. But Vampire was a cool game. It was just missing some mechanical aspects to it that would have really made it a classic. The whole, there we go, Dennis Lubay. That was it. Sorry, I don't know where I got that other last name from. Daryl Arrett is with us. Good to see you once again. Russell Higgins points out Battle Beyond the Stars. Oh, yeah. See, funny enough, I didn't go see a lot of those movies. Weirdly. I mean, you would have thought, a teenager, they go see that. Not much. Not really much. Because the funny thing is, we spent more time gaming. So if we had the option of going to see some schlocky movie or playing some games for the night, we would normally do the games. Flaming Heron said they actually got a free copy of Deadlands back in the day when they purchased some role-playing games and really got into it as a result. Chris Lundgren asks if the Buck Rogers role-playing game was any good looking back now. Well, you got to realize, if I remember correctly, that came out like in the 90s. So I was long gone from TSR stuff there. I never laid an eye on it because, to be honest, all I've ever seen from the Buck Rogers role-playing game from TSR is the cover art of some of the books. That's really it. Didn't know. Don't know. Justice McPherson says, Monster, the subtitle. Yeah, we know where you're going there. I didn't like because the local scene for it was terrible. They kept running it as an over-the-top combat bloodfest. Really? Absolutely not. The way that game or that game series is designed. So that's a little strange. But one of the things that was great, and Scott can attest to this, was just we would go to like a place that carried games, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Look at that. Look at this. Oh, hey, oh. Because there was no hype machine. And when you bought something, you didn't have any like advanced knowledge about it unless maybe you read the General magazine, which was Avalon Hill's House Organ, or Dragon, obviously TSR's House Organ. We also had Chaosium had their house organ. You had, no, actually Chaosium didn't. That would have been Steve Jackson Games. So you had different worlds. So like reviews of stuff, you'd see a review of something maybe like 6 months after it came out. So you were really rolling the dice, no pun intended, when you were picking up some new game from a new publisher you'd never heard of. And as Chris Lundgren says, it was all new. There was no internet reviews to spoil the fun. No, there weren't. But there were also no internet reviews to help us save money on crap. So sadly, we've got that aspect of it too. But yes, it was just, you're like, oh, wow. Oh, holy cow. Oh, oh, look, there's like a science fiction role-playing game. Oh, look, there's a World War II role-playing game. Oh, wow, look. There's a role-playing game about, I don't know, some monster horror stuff. Mr. Lovelace? I don't know who that is, but this looks kind of cool. I'm going to buy this. I didn't say Lovelace. I read the box. It's like, yeah, there's a role-playing game with Linda Lovelace in it. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll pick it up. W4 says they remember being disappointed in the Indiana Jones RPG by TSR. You weren't alone in that. No character creation? Zoinks. Wasn't the Master Book supposed to be pretty good, though? The Master Book edition? That was one of the IPs they did for West End Games had it. I don't know. I've never seen it. They are actually pretty pricey on the secondary market. But I had always heard that the Master Book Indiana Jones was pretty good. Justice says they played Buck Rogers 25. Loved the world, didn't like the D&D roots. We ended up feeling overly tanky. You know, it's weird. I remember running a role-playing game for Elliot's nephew, Paul. And it was based on 2010, the Arthur C. Clarke. Well, the movie had come out, and it was from TSR, and I don't remember what role-playing game it was for. And I remember running it for him. And, of course, he hadn't seen the movie or anything. I was like, oh, okay, kind of cool. Anyway, so Chris Lundgren says the gamer cliques were intense in their area. You were either a miniatures player, a role-playing game player, and didn't mix. See, now we weren't like that. We played everything, and a lot of people that we encountered, they also did the same. They also played everything. Now, I will say that being teenagers was probably a benefit. There you go. The Badger says it was for Star Frontiers. Thank you. Oh, Keith Ulu had also pointed that out. But I think being a teenager was an advantage for us because we weren't set in our ways of playing particular things. Like, you know, I guarantee there were people who would only play hex and counter war games. And that was it. That's all they would play. They had role-playing games. I don't want anything to miniatures games. No. I only want to play SPI or Avalon Hill, hex and counter war games. But we were all into everything. We played hex and counter war games. We played role-playing games. We played miniatures games. We played just about anything that was out there. And something else that really helped was there wasn't a lot of competition for entertainment. I read constantly. So I've always been a big reader. We'd go through periods where, there wasn't anything at the movies that you wanted to go check out. Nah. Maybe there wasn't really any good shows on TV that you watched all the time. Nah. So it was like, hey, we could focus on gaming, right? It was like, we could do that. Whereas now there are just so many things out there, so many activities, so many hobbies, much of it just right at your fingertips by way of your phone or tablet or computer or console or whatever. So like video games, we had computer games and stuff, but I mean, we're talking some of the most popular computer games when Scott and I were in high school were like text-based games like Zork and things like that. W. Ford says they remember saving dimes to photocopy character sheets at the pharmacy. Yep. I remember we had to walk up to the Jewel by Elliot's house every once in a while to make photocopies of different stuff. Chris Lundgren says, except for the satanic panic in the 80s, it was real. And if your parents went to the public school meeting, it was hell on a teen that played D&D, but they were stubborn and did it anyway. Me personally, never encountered any problems whatsoever. Most, I think, yes, Scott Weigel says the Brickyard. Yep, that's where the Jewel was that we had to go to. We love Tabletop Role-Playing Games is with us tonight. So they had to sneak in to use the school photocopier to make character sheets. I did that from time to time, places I worked at that had like printers and stuff. I'd be like, oh, okay, hold on. There we go. Those were the days. But most of the people, once again, we were in a big city. So not to say that you didn't have like evangelicals and things like that, but you tend to have options out there. Keith Ulu said they had a witch who was a real rhymes with, had an aunt who was a real rhymes with witch about Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, I mean, we have the same kind of stuff that goes on today. about various different things. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. But yeah, we were lucky. I didn't, like I said, I don't know anybody who had family members that gave them a hard time. But once again, you got to remember, we didn't stick with D&D for long. So we were playing war games and all these other things too. So it wasn't as if we were sitting around playing a game where it's like, oh yeah, I've got wizards and I'm summoning creatures. And no, I mean, we played games like that, but it wasn't something that we did all the time. We had a lot of different things that we played. So I think we probably, at least my friends and I, dodged some bullets there. All right. That is it for this time out. Once again, no show tomorrow, no show on Thursday. So I will be back a week from today. So I should mention, July is going to be kind of weird a little bit because I'll be at Comic-Con in 3 weeks. So there won't be shows that week. And then right after that, I'll be going to Gen Con. I might try to do a Tuesday show before I leave on Wednesday. But once again, another week that we probably won't be seeing live shows. I do have videos which are in the can and in the pipeline. I already told you I got You Are the Hero 40th Anniversary Edition. I'll be sharing that. I'm also going to be sharing some Tales of the Valiant videos. I have some goodies from Steamforged Games, which is arriving. I've got actually the Monster Hunter World. I think it's the Jungle Edition, which is showing up. One of our folks in chat who wants to remain anonymous was kind enough to provide me with the means to get Mothership First Edition, the box set. So I ordered that from Exalted Funeral. That's supposed to show up, I think it's tomorrow. So a lot of goodies, just a little light on the live streams. All right, though. Once again, big thank you to our sponsor. That's right, sponsoring tonight's show and all of next week's shows. It is Dark Star Adventures. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter for Cult of the Cave Crickets. Ooh, scary kids, scary. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company too. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the nearly 2,000 videos on the channel. Yeah, that's a lot of videos. Of course, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming review of You Are the Hero 40th Anniversary Edition. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Enjoy the rest of the week. Have a great 4th of July if you're here in the U.S. If not, enjoy the rest of the week. Have a great weekend. I will be back a week from tonight, and hopefully my broken toe will be healing by then. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very kindly for watching, And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.